In this video, we will look at the surface plane, element number 5, and we will begin to learn about some design principles. So we are at the surface plane, and this is where we start developing the finished product. This is where we bring everything together visually. So when developing the finished product, the content, functionality, and aesthetics all come together. This is where we give it a visual appeal which fulfills the goals of the below plane. So we've already looked at the arrangement of the elements. Now we will enable the movement through the product, interaction, navigation. We are concerned with sensory design, the visual communication, and the logical design, the conceptual communication. With respect to sensory design, we're looking at our basic senses: smell and taste, touch, hearing, and vision. And vision is one of the senses that is employed regardless of what product you are developing. We'll look at this term aesthetics, the philosophy that deals with the art of beauty, which was put forth by Aristotle. This term was coined by Alex Baumgartner as important for good design. So we have to ask the question, is beauty subjective? What may be visually pleasing to one may not be to the other. This is where knowing the user comes in. Today we look at aesthetics as not only being the visual attractiveness, but also the cohesiveness of a work. So good design portrays the content, communicates a message, and in today's world also communicates a feeling. With respect to our site, the web being a fluid medium, the print world being a static medium, we see the touch sense on mobile devices. So today we're going to look at elements of design, which are the components that we use when creating any design, whether it be print, web, multimedia, the things that we use. And we'll also look at principles of design, principles to be considered, some rules or laws that govern the components. I will talk about 8 elements of design, although some authors may talk about more or less. These are not in your book, so we are relying on outside sources. Color, commonly referred to as hue, value, tone, texture, shape, form, space, which means white space also, line, and type. These are different elements that we would be using when creating art design. Color can aid in organization, so you want to develop a color strategy and be consistent with those colors. Colors can give emphasis and can also create a hierarchy. The value of a color is the lightness or darkness. So sometimes you might choose a color and then vary the lightness or darkness, vary those values to augment your content, thereby giving some form to your design. The texture is the surface quality, rough, smooth, soft, etc. It can be something physical or visual. Shape. We're pretty much looking at geometric shapes that we use when developing, laying out our content. The form that your design may take is created by the combining of the shapes. The space around or between the elements is another element of design. The lines that we use, the type or typography, which will be covered next week. There are 10 basic principles: contrast, emphasis, balance, unity, pattern, movement, rhythm, repetition, proportion, simplicity, and gradation. Contrast. Contrast allows us to establish some kind of emphasis. It also provides uniformity and consistency. We will contrast size of things, size of type. We can contrast colors, directions, and space. Balance, the illusion of being the same or equal. Uniformity or unity, when everything is in agreement, and a good balance between unity and variety is a good thing. So we're looking at size, color, direction, space. Proportion or scale, the relative sizes of the elements with respect to each other. Hierarchy or dominance. A good design will have some elements that lead the reader. So we need to create that effect using the principles of design. Gradation, varying the size, varying the color from light to dark. It can add interest and lead the user in a direction. Harmony is essentially relating things. Dominance, here again, creates emphasis. Repetition creates consistency and unifies. Contrast is probably one of the most important principles of design. Using different colors, tones, directions, shapes, lines, because contrast shows emphasis. It also shows a relationship of one thing to another, and it can also be used to unify and to organize. Contrast allows us to set an area of interest which will draw the user's attention, the thing that you notice first, and it creates a visual hierarchy. Contrast is created by varying size, varying position, color, typeface, lines. You generally apply the contrast to logos, to banners, navigations, headers, footers, sidebars, feature items, and search bars. All of these items generally tend to stand out, and that is achieved by applying the principle of contrast. So here's an example of a website, and you can see that some things stand out more than others. Here you can see where we are using color to create contrast. We are also using direction. We're varying the order to create contrast, to draw your attention. We have our banners, a color, background color, and a white text, creating contrast. We have our logo, a lot of white space around it. Our color with our search button. So we're seeing how some principles of design allow us to focus on parts of our product where we want to draw the user's attention. Another example of how contrast can be used effectively. The newsletter on the right, very monotone, very uninteresting. On the left, because we've used contrast, we're contrasting colors. We have contrasting colors and size, contrasting typeface. Again, on the left and on the right is more appealing. Contrast of type, of color, of size, of white space, of shapes. Again, comparison with the left to the right. Contrasting with colors, with type, with white space, with shapes. Another principle of design is uniformity. We always want to have consistency. Uniformity is a visual language that the user can understand. An example of a consistency is a logo. Every time you see a logo, it has the same font type, the same size, the same indentation around it. We create uniformity in many ways, the same way we create contrast with size, position, color, by keeping it uniform, certain elements of our layout. By using consistent margins, padding, white space, and layout, we create the feel that our document is unified. Our brochure has unity. The website has unity. Our product has unity. It shows relationship between the elements by proximity or distance. Things closer together are more related, farther apart are more different. So here is an example of not only contrast but also uniformity. Here we see the color for contrast, but yet there is, and also for contrast, we have our color and our typeface. Look at the uniformity. We have the same size, we have the same spacing, the same padding, the same line space, the same margins. We have uniformity in the placement. We have uniformity. Here we have some uniformity, but yet we have contrast. We also have some balance, which we'll get to soon. There's balance. How we position elements on the page, how we equalize the weight, how we equalize the attraction. So we're looking at the placement and alignment of everything on the page. By centering, by varying our color, our contrast, by using floats and grids if you're a web developer, and making sure that everything is balanced after the fold with respect to a print product or a web-based product. Here we look at this concept of symmetry. Here we have an asymmetrical balance, although that's still balanced. You can see if it feels right. One more time, asymmetrical. Many web developers use these grids for balance. Another principle of design is harmony or pattern, which allows us to create some type of unity and order, cohesiveness, using repeating elements to obtain these effects. We obtain harmony by repeating shapes and colors, textures or images, background images. Here we see contrast, we see unity, we also see harmony. We see harmony in the repetition of the background, the repetition of the colors. Repetition, repeated use of element or design, which we have just seen. It creates interest. It creates unity and harmony. By using repeated shapes or colors, repeating borders, repeating lines,